So Jon Figdor is our presenter this morning. The subject is the challenge for humanism in the post-postmodern era. I hope you explain what the post-postmodern era is, because I'm not sure what that is, but I look forward to finding out. So Jon has been here in the Bay Area for about the last just under 18 months. He's the Humanist Chaplain, basically responsible for taking care and leading the Humanist, Atheist, and Agnostic student group at Stanford. He's related to an organization that I'm involved with called the Humanist Connection, which is responsible for supporting his efforts there. Jon, so I've known him now for approaching 2 years, I think, is committed to humanism, the values of humanism. I asked him his vision for life, and it's to be the Humanist Chaplain in Stanford till the day he dies. So he has a purpose and a vision. He came from Harvard, where they have a very active and successful humanist community, working, I think, originally for Greg Epstein there. He did a degree of divinity at Harvard, is that correct? And so with that, I'll hand over to Jon and look forward to his talk. Thanks, Jon.
Thanks, Martin. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? I'm glad to hear it. Today, I'm actually not going to start with my presentation. I'm going to start with some news. I normally do this with my student group at Stanford, but I had to share something with you because there's been some phenomenal news for us. You should know that recently, Freedom from Religion Foundation won an extremely important court case, which challenged the concept of the parsonage exemption. Now, some of you folks won't know what this is. The parsonage exemption is a form of religious privileging where essentially clergy members are not required to pay taxes on any apartment, residence, house, whatever it happens to be that they live in. This has cost the government in excess of $8 billion a year in maintaining this privilege, because folks like Rick Warren have enormous houses, numerous, multiple residences, and they don't pay taxes on any of those. Freedom from Religion Foundation has been challenging this for at least 5 years now, and they finally won their court case, which is in Wisconsin State Supreme Court. They found that religious organizations no longer have the right to give their clergy a special tax-free housing situation, that someone who works in a domestic violence shelter and someone who works as a minister should be treated the same in terms of tax subsidy. So we should really let's put our hands together for the Freedom from Religion Foundation and their fantastic success. Now, this is just one in a long series of legal victories the secular movement has won. This is probably one of the most important ones because it addresses the nexus of cash and influence. And that's the problem, is getting fundamentalists away from access to money and power. Then we'll be able to move our movement forward. So now I want to return to our actual topic for today. I'm Jon Figdor. I'm the Humanist Chaplain at Stanford. Before I get started, I want to introduce myself and a little bit about my organization. I grew up in Westchester, New York, in a liberal religious Christian home with a Christian mother and a Jewish atheist/agnostic father. I was a naturally skeptical kid, a trait I proved when I caught my parents putting presents under the Christmas tree in flagrante delicto. This set a very young me thinking, if Santa Claus isn't real and ghosts and monsters aren't real, then why is God real? I found myself drifting from vaguely Christian beliefs to more deist beliefs, and ultimately came out as an atheist in high school. After I graduated from Vassar College with a degree in analytic philosophy, I served for a year working for the federal government in a domestic violence shelter in rural Montana. While living and working in Montana, I started to really think about the ways that religious extremism can threaten ethical and social progress. These harms were particularly clear at this time in my life. This was right after the aftermath of 9/11, the murder of Dr. Tiller, the Danish cartoonist murders. Even worse, I started witnessing the damage religion caused at a local level in the form of abused women who'd been told by pastors that their covenant with God required them to stay with their abusers, or the local rescue mission that pressured the attendees to pray before eating. I decided at this point to enroll in Harvard Divinity School to pursue a graduate degree in religion, ethics, and politics on my way to a career in journalism, where I would write articles and books inveighing against the harms caused by religious organizations and faith-based thinking. But while I was studying at Harvard, I ran the Harvard Heathens graduate community and met Harvard's Humanist Chaplain, Greg Epstein. Some of you may know Greg from his book, Good Without God. Greg convinced me that the humanist atheist community wasn't lacking for scholars and journalists focused on exposing the harms of religion, but instead that atheist humanist agnostics were focused entirely on refuting the claims of religion while doing nothing to build alternatives to religious communities. As a result, while people would agree with us philosophically, we noticed that when young families started having children, they felt the siren call of religious community with its family-friendly programs, its free childcare for children. I concluded quickly that the humanist movement really needed to invest the time and effort that it takes to build real communities to support non-religious people, and agreed to change my degree to an MDiv and build the Humanist Chaplain training program at Harvard with Greg. When I graduated from the Divinity School, as the first atheist humanist MDiv in the school's history, I accepted a job to work at Harvard as their Assistant Humanist Chaplain. And after serving in that capacity for 2 years, Martin and some other folks out here from the Humanist Connection Board invited me to come out here and serve as the Humanist Chaplain at Stanford. So now that you know a little bit about me, I want to get to today's topic, which are the challenges that humanism faces today. I want to talk about a set of facts that are both deeply encouraging for people of a skeptical and non-theistic nature, but are also somewhat disturbing. Historically, the nones, or those people who would answer none when asked which religion they belong to, have represented a tiny fraction of the American population. But starting with the millennial generation, which is roughly people born after 1980 and up to about 2000, this tiny segment of the population exploded from a few percentage points to 33%, or 1 in every 3 people under the age of 30. Let's drill into the data. According to ARIS, which is the American Religious Identification Survey, in 2008, the nones more than doubled from 1990 to 2008 and almost doubled their share of the adult population from 8% in 1990 to 15% in 2008. Moreover, the nuns increased in numbers and proportion in every state of the country from 1990 to 2008. No other religious bloc has ever kept such a pace in every state of the Union. More recently, an October 2012 poll from the Pew Forum for Religion and Democracy found that 32% of people under the age of 30 are non-religious. Gallup's March 29, 2013 poll suggests that 31% of all Americans, not limited just to people under the age of 30, are non-religious, when non-religious is defined as saying religion isn't an important part of your daily life and that you seldom or never attend religious services. More relevant to us, the Gallup polling company found that cities like San Jose, San Francisco, Boston, and Cambridge have non-religious populations in excess of 45%. And states like Vermont have cities like Burlington with populations that have more than 60% non-religious residents. This is the good news, and this is fantastic news. For too long, non-religious Americans have been marginalized, pushed to the periphery of American society, told that the way to be an ethical, upstanding person is to belong to a church, to be religious, preferably Christian, obviously. But today, when atheist, humanist, and agnostic intellectuals like Richard Dawkins and Steven Pinker are included in the top 3 intellectuals in the world, and are joined by numerous other influential non-religious people like A.C. Grayling and Gloria Steinem and Peter Singer and Mary Roach and Sam Harris, Rebecca Goldstein, Daniel Dennett, Patricia Churchland, Lawrence Krauss, Angelina Jolie, I really could keep going at length. There has never been a better time to be a non-religious American. But while the good news is that Americans are walking away from religion and religious organizations in record numbers, the not so good news is that it appears as though many of these Americans who walk away from religion also disengage with many other aspects of American civic life. Scholars Robert Putnam and David Campbell, in their book American Grace: How Religion Divides and Unites Us, focus in on one particular problem with the so-called nones. Sadly, it turns out, as the provocative blurb on the back cover proclaims, religious citizens are better citizens than secular Americans, more generous with their time and their treasure, even for secular causes. Now, I want to pause to explain this because I'm sure some people are calling BS here. The reality is this is true. Not only do religious Americans donate more money to religious organizations, shocker, but they also give more money to secular organizations like Doctors Without Borders, the American Red Cross, organizations like that. So that actually is a slightly disturbing fact. This is significant. We live in a democratic society, one predicated upon the active participation of the voting public, and more worryingly, one which views delivering meals to the elderly as optional, creating domestic violence shelters as charitable endeavors, and views food stamps and homeless shelters as handouts for the takers. By this, I mean that programs like Meals on Wheels, food banks, and domestic violence shelters, such as the one that I worked at, are substantially supported by volunteer hours and donations from community members. So it is massively problematic to our society if, in addition to tuning out from religion, a significant number of the non-religious public also tune out from engagement with civic and charitable organizations. Well, that's the bad news. But guess what? There's good news ahead. In Putnam's own words in his book, the explanation for this phenomena has less to do with faith than communities of faith. And that's the key word, communities. Here's a thought experiment. Take two groups of people, the two groups of 5 people. One group meets once a week for a few hours together to cooperate, to plan, and to celebrate their past achievements. The other group of 5 operates purely as individuals, never meeting or collaborating. Now, ask each group of 5 to accomplish some objective: recruiting financial sponsors for a walkathon, raising money for disaster relief, whatever you choose. At the end of a month's time, which group do you think is going to accomplish more? The answer is pretty clear. It's the group that cooperates. Not only does the cooperation group benefit from the efficiency inherent to working in a small group, like being able to break big, complicated projects into smaller parts, or being able to factor in diverse perspectives, but more importantly, cooperating with other people actually inspires us to accomplish more. When people make public commitments to the other members of their community, they'll be more inclined to follow through with them. The group of 5 cooperators will not only accomplish more, but they'll take on more and more complex projects than 5 isolated individuals. I doubt that it's shocking to anybody that if you get together regularly with a group of people and you happen to spend some portion of that time together exhorting each other to perform community service projects, maybe even planning them together, that you would do more than if you did that on your own and set out to accomplish these by yourself. It turns out that human beings are great motivators. We can inspire each other to be better people. This is one of the key benefits of attendance of churches, synagogues, and mosques. Being inspired to take on moral projects and reinforcing one another in our moral commitments. Now, the good news is that we secular Americans are starting to recognize the importance of the role religious organizations have played in energizing and inspiring their communities to support organizations like soup kitchens and homeless shelters. In fact, the rise of organizations such as Non-Believers Giving Aid, which is part of the Richard Dawkins Foundation, or Foundation Beyond Belief, or the American Humanist Association, are beginning to focus humanist attention on social justice issues, as well as giving humanists a secular alternative for their volunteering time and philanthropic dollars. Organizations like Foundation Beyond Belief, Non-Believers Giving Aid, the American Humanist Association, these are unquestionably great starts to stepping up and filling the void left by religious organizations in charitable giving. But while they provide secular alternatives to organizations like Catholic Charities or the Salvation Army, the related question of how we are going to create atheist humanist communities to inspire people to pursue charitable projects like these hasn't been prioritized. The good news is that while the atheist humanist movement hasn't paid much attention to the importance of local communities, this is one of the research areas that Greg Epstein and I pursued extensively during our research at the Humanist Community at Harvard. We developed a model for humanist communities and have been using the Humanist Community at Harvard as a lab to experiment with various different models. The Humanist Connection, the organization which I left the Humanist Community at Harvard to run, is designed specifically based on the experiments we performed at Harvard. What we found was that atheists, humanists, and agnostics are looking for an integrated community that address their intellectual needs, their emotional needs, and their social needs. When I was the assistant chaplain at Harvard, I met countless young atheist, humanist, agnostic couples who came to me with questions like, I'm an atheist who wants to get married without God. Is there such a thing as an atheist wedding? Or where can I go to be inspired, educated, and uplifted when I'm feeling depressed or overwhelmed? Or where can we take our children for moral education and edification with our children's peers? At first, Greg asked me to research some of these questions, putting together an answer for what sort of resources already existed in these areas. I answered the question with a monstrously complicated chart indicating, well, you could go to this atheist book club on the second Wednesday of the month, and then there's this Unitarian church that hosts a young adult meetup on the third Thursday, and then there's this Reformed synagogue, and they do non-religious and interfaith weddings, and then this Bay Area nonprofit, they do science lectures if you want that. And as we stared at this chart, we realized that this was the problem all along. While a collection of disparate organizations and clubs might technically fulfill one's needs in each of these categories, none of them offers the benefits of a cohesive, integrated community. After all, when you get diagnosed with esophageal cancer, that isn't something that most intramural kickball league organizers are familiar helping people cope with. When you're the victim of domestic violence, the local science events coordinator isn't likely to be experienced in how to help. These are the times when the need for a real community for the non-religious comes into the starkest relief. We built the Harvard Humanist Community as our first attempt to answer that question, and are building the Humanist Connection based on the knowledge we gained and the mistakes we made in building the Humanist Community at Harvard. If we look out into the world of atheist and humanist communities, we see lots of small groups of atheists and humanists. Just in this SF Bay Area, there are the 1, South Bay Freethinkers, 2, Jewish Humanists of Silicon Valley, 3, Kol Hadash, Secular Humanistic Jewish Congregation, 4, South County Freethinkers, 5, Atheists of San Jose and Monterey, 6, the Contra Costa Atheists, 7, the UU Humanists of Palo Alto, 8, the UU Humanists of San Francisco, 9, the Ethical Culture Society of Silicon Valley, 10, the Bay Area Blasphemers, 11, the Humanist Community of Silicon Valley, 12, the Atheist Community of San Jose, 13, the Sunday Assembly Silicon Valley, 14, the Sunday Assembly San Francisco, and 15, the Humanist Connection, my organization. Because we are so divided and fractured, it becomes exceptionally difficult to put on large-scale, high-quality events. Most of these local communities have no ability to bring in top-quality speakers like Richard Dawkins, Gloria Steinem, Neil deGrasse Tyson, or Sam Harris. Now, mostly they can't bring in this top talent because they can't afford to do so, and also because they don't have the time needed to coordinate these kinds of events. Even if they did get one of these speakers, these groups often lack access to a big enough venue available at a sustainable enough price in order to run an event with 1,000 attendees and sell it out consistently. Well, look, I'm here to talk to you folks about solving that problem. My organization, the Humanist Connection, has a strong track record of hosting top-quality, large-scale speaker events here in Silicon Valley. We have unparalleled access to gorgeous facilities at Stanford that can host 600, 1,200, 1,800 plus humanists. We have unparalleled access to speakers such as Richard Dawkins, Steven Pinker, Sam Harris, Neil deGrasse Tyson. But what we need is your help. We need you to join us, attend our events, and financially support our organization. Like the other chaplains at Stanford, The Humanist Connection receives no financial support whatsoever from Stanford University. My salary and 100% of our program costs are paid for by the interested donors in the San Francisco Bay Area. If you're interested in getting involved with our organization, please email me at jfigdor@stanford.edu or come and talk to me after the event. We launched the Humanist Connection because we thought that it was important to introduce the Stanford community to humanism through regularly occurring, top-quality events featuring the leading lights of humanism and atheism in beautiful and inspiring event spaces. If you agree that having a humanist chaplain at Stanford who can provide these resources to atheists, humanists, agnostics throughout the San Francisco Bay Area is important, then I want to encourage you to please consider making a pledge to our organization.
Yeah, hi, John.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah, I was just, I was wondering, is there a website, humanistconnection.org?
Yes, so you can find us at stanfordhumanist.org or humanistconnection.org. Both websites exist.
Okay, and then I was wondering, is it possible to donate online
You
yet?
can, exactly. You can just
Okay.
click on the donate button on either of those. And we really ask people, I'm not asking people to give an enormous amount. Whatever you can give to support us would really help us out. Small donations help too. If you're thinking, what does $5, $10 mean? That tells a larger donor that there's a lot of people who are interested. So please, nothing is too small.
And is it just focused on Stanford, or is it going to spread out to other universities or locations?
Well, so that's a very good question, Brian. And as I alluded to in my talk, a significant part of our organization is based not at Stanford campus. So yes, we have our student group and we run programs there, but events like the Neuroscience of Magic, as some of our folks who attended, those are open to the public, and those are for people all throughout Silicon Valley. We want to be doing that more and more with higher and higher level speakers. And our next big public event will be with David Silverman in January, February. We're confirming the details on that. But we'll be looking for large-scale venues where we can bring in all of you folks to come and see these speakers, as well as people from down in San Jose and all the way up to San Francisco.